Welcome back to Bay Area Focus. We have an inspirational guest joining us now. Author Vaddey Ratner survived the Cambodian genocide and made it to the United States at the age of 11. Her incredible story of survival served as inspiration for her haunting novel, In the Shadow of the Banyan. Vaddey is back with an equally mesmerizing novel, Music of the Ghosts, and she is here with us now to talk all about it. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Michelle, for welcoming me.
Okay, so Music of the Ghosts, where did this idea come from, and tell me about the story?
Well, In the Shadow of the Banyan is autobiographical. It's based on my experience as a child living through the Khmer Rouge regime. So In the Shadow of the Banyan is a story of survival. Music of the Ghosts is about the survivors, people like myself who were victims, but also people who took part in the violence by varying degrees of choice and coercion. It's about the lives that endure after such trauma and the questions that haunt us. How do we grapple with our history? How do we live side by side with those who have done us wrong? How can victims and perpetrators of unspeakable violence learn to understand one another, to make sense of immense loss without being overwhelmed by hatred or by grief. So these questions I myself confront as a survivor of that atrocity.
And you write about a woman, it kind of centers on this woman, Tira.
Yes.
Who is, I believe, in her 30s?
Yes, in her 30s. She's Cambodian American. She spent from her teenage years, she grew up in Minnesota, and then one day she receives this mysterious letter from a stranger she doesn't know, who claims to have known her father while the two men were incarcerated together in a Khmer Rouge prison during the Khmer Rouge regime. And he tells her, I have 3 musical instruments that belong to your father, or belonged to him. And Tira goes to Cambodia and she meets this old man, half blind. Yes,
right?
Old musician, half blind, disfigured, and yes, he's known to those around him only as the older musician. And so as the story unfolds, we learn that Tira and the older musician are drawn to each other not only by their shared interwoven history, but by remembered melodies, but also by the questions they confront as they face the past together.
Sure. And initially, I mean, it is the history, but also the musical instruments. How did you decide that it would be instruments to bring these two characters together?
Well, you know, on among my first returns to Cambodia, I went around looking for remnants of our old life, and I was at an spirit-invoking ceremony one day, and I heard the sound of this drum, and it seemed to echo my steps returning home, and also some longing in my heart. And I thought that I wanted to someday write about a story that has the journey of returning home, but use music as the drawing force. And in Cambodian culture, music is not only something that belongs to the living alone. Music connects us to the world unseen, to those we can no longer love and hold.
Well, you too, as Tira did, returned to Cambodia after living in America for many years. What was that first return like for you?
Oh my goodness. You know, when I left Cambodia, I had a sense that I buried almost my entire family there, except my mother who escaped with me. On returning, I felt like a rebirth. I felt like I'm coming back to a place where so much can be reborn again. Love, forgiveness, healing. And it all had to do with the people that I encountered there, to see them suffer and to see them have so much hope, so much humanity, and I feel like me, someone who is in America, how could I not be inspired by that? And so for me, it's not only a return, it's a rebirth.
So is it easier to visit now?
It's a little bit easier, but Cambodia is my love and it is my heartbreak. Yeah. Always, yeah. You know, and I go, and when I step out of the plane to see the level of poverty, to see the level of suffering, sure. Is always so hard, and it breaks my heart every time. But then after you spend some time there, you encounter such amazing strength, such incredible humanity, such beauty in the midst of all that privation, and you're left feeling more inspired than ever.
Well, you truly are amazing and inspirational. Thank you so much for sharing your story and also your books.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks for coming on the show. And to read more about Vaddey's incredible journey and her book, Music of the Ghost, just log on to VaddeyRatner.com. After the break, we discuss how flowers are giving women opportunities. We'll be right back.